Friends, welcome to this fireside chat with Ibrahim Mukhtiar, who's the co-founder of iCog.ai. We are now streaming live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Well, my name is Thomas Abraham, and I work with SaaS companies, helping them with their business strategy, go-to-market, and global expansion. Today, Ibrahim and I will be talking about disrupting learning technology. But first, let me request Ibrahim to introduce himself and his company, iCog. Yeah, Ibrahim?
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas. Hey, everyone. My name's Ibrahim, and I represent iCog.ai. So we are, a personalized learning platform, one of the most comprehensive competency and talent development platforms. Personally, I have been in the HR and learn tech space for almost 2 decades. That's the entirety of my career so far. And fortunate enough to see at least a couple of full-time changes in the way learning has gone about across industries, and happy to chat up with you, Thomas, today. So let's get started.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ibrahim. And so just for our viewers here, I thought I'll just give a small set some context here. So actually, learning has now become a focus area for companies, as we all know that employees need to constantly upskill and reskill, and it's even more important, has been very important over the past year plus, because of the fact that the business environment has changed dramatically, and business models also have been changing, and learning has become a very critical piece for organizations to also stay competitive.
Absolutely.
Now, it's also proven that employees are better engaged when we enable them to excel in their jobs, and learning here again becomes a very important component. Now, as I mentioned, the learning landscape has changed dramatically ever since the pandemic hit us, and digital learning has actually taken over. Now, given this background, there is a lot of innovation now happening in the learning technology space. And Ibrahim and I will discuss this in detail. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the rapid rise of learning content consumption with the onset of the pandemic in early 2020. In the pre-pandemic days, learning providers always complained that their content consumption was often less than 10%. But with the pandemic coming in, there were so many changes, and there are 3 that I just wanted to re-emphasize. We already know them, but I thought I'll just set the stage here for that. So companies obviously moved to 100%, work from home model. Secondly, companies changed their business models, as I spoke about, and there was increasing digital transformation. And that also led to several new roles being created and several new skills being required by employees. And thirdly, of course, there was plenty of free courseware that flooded the internet. Now, what happened because of all that is that learning took a big steep climb. It rose to about 40% plus in terms of consumption. And employees really started seeing the value of skilling up, and the only source that they had was actually digital. So Ibrahim, really bringing you in now. See, in the post-pandemic era, many companies will perhaps move back to an office model or maybe a hybrid model. And there will always be companies who will say, we will be 100% work from anywhere. That's one thing. The second thing is that, over a period of time, business models will also stabilize, because what we've seen historically is that whenever there's a big discontinuity in the environment, there's a significant change in business models. So, so we believe that this business models will settle in, over a period of time. That's the second thing. And the third thing is that there's a lot of digital fatigue and there's a lot of work from home fatigue. In fact, in today's economic times, one of the business leaders was quoted as saying that, look, there is a lot of fatigue setting in, and they're keen that the vaccination gets effective, and they're able to bring back people to the office. So, given all this as a background, Ibrahim, do you think these levels of learning content consumption can be sustained? And I know your answer is going to be yes, but then how can we then make this grow further as well?
Yeah, Thomas. So, yes, the answer, of course, is yes. But I think one of the fundamental changes that has happened to learning, pre and post, is that today learning is on the topmost agenda of the CEO. So it's the CEO himself who's realized that I need to take care of the capability development of my organization. So upskilling has become the new normal. And this is when I'm looking at it, from a purely, organization top-down perspective. When you look at it from the individual's perspective, people have understood that there is no other choice but to, kind of upskill and continuously reskill. Somewhere or the other, people have had a chance to be able to reflect and being able to kind of align themselves, to this new piece. And I think, people have done wonderfully well for themselves overall. So now the next, for the answer to your question actually lies in the fact whether organizations are going to be able to help their learners, sustain. One thing happened out of a push, and it was almost a reactionary cause which kind of brought that 40% piece in terms of learning consumptions. But the question really that we need to answer is, are organizations going to be able to find different ways to be able to engage their learners in an environment where there's going to be a work from everywhere sort of a scenario? So is it just going to be digital learning, or are they going to be able to bring all formats of learning, whether they will be able to engage virtually, whether they will be able to do the self-capability development, or even for that matter, assessment tools and all of that? And can they build that real ecosystem to be able to make sure that the learning culture is continuously driven within the organizations? Can they bring in coaching, on demand, reach outs? Can that be, possible for people? So all of this, for that momentum to actually continue, organizations will have to really think this through, and that is what is going to define what is going to be a continuously progressive learning organization, and what an organization is going to be where people will find that, oh, I'm tired, there's a lot of fatigue, I'm just working, there's no contribution coming in from my employer, and I really don't know what's going on. So I think that's going to be one of the key pieces which organizations will have to look at for the learning to be sustained.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think definitely a lot of innovation happening in learning technology will continue to propel digital. But you brought out a very interesting point about different forms of learning, which really brings me to the next very important point that we need to discuss, which is really learning in the flow of work. In fact, HR tech gurus like Josh Bersin and various others have been speaking about this at length. And obviously, as you rightly mentioned, learning can be classified into a number of categories. There is the classroom training, there is an on-the-job training, there is a online macro macro learning, which is, which could be much longer than this micro learning. But for our discussion, if we just look at, the digital pieces for now, and if you look at, let's say, macro learning, which is really, there as an employee, I want to learn something new, right? And therefore, what I want to learn something new will perhaps be a courseware, which may take several days. And as you rightly mentioned, there could be some coaching linked to it and grading and so on and so forth. And then there's the micro learning, which is, I need help right now, right? Which is, bite size, as you mentioned, and problem related, and so on and so forth. So now all this is easier said than done, right? I mean, we have all these formats and learning. But the key is, how does learning in the flow of work actually get executed at ground zero, right? And how is technology enabling that? And it'll be great if you can share some examples of how some companies have successfully implemented this as well.
Absolutely. So, see, for learning in the flow of work to get executed, and rightly coined by Josh Bersin, and then tagged along by other futurists as well. I think the key piece here is to be able to fundamentally understand who your learner is, understand and personalize what you bring to that learner, so that the ability to bring the right piece of content, the right advice, and the right action plan for a learner whilst they are actually doing their work is what is going to be absolutely implementation of learning in the flow of work. For this, you need to understand what the role is of the learner within the organization. You need to have a decently smart competency framework in place. Your digital platform needs to be able to hold all of this. It needs to understand the learner's preferences, styles, where the learner is at that point in time, so that when that invoking of that learning has to happen, the system is intelligent enough to be able to kind of bring the right set of engagement for a user, to be able to bring that absolute learning in the flow of work. So this could be a combination of bite-sized videos, some coaching on demand, on the job training, knowing when to bring in the right set of feedback to a learner, prompting them, assessment, knowing when to assess the learner at that right point, and then more importantly, rewarding the learner at the right point, so that the learner is motivated then to go to that next level. All of this is actually the replica of what a great mentor or a great manager would actually be able to do with the learner whilst they were working in the office, or in a physical environment. How does your system now understand you as a person, and then be able to bring and invoke that learning in whatever format it is?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I also want to just touch upon the other aspect of the pace of learning, for example, and where you are in your own evolution. So for example, if you're just starting a job, or you're an entry level person, then you need to do these longer duration courses and so on, because there is a little more structure that you need around what you learn. And then as you build your expertise, perhaps you're faced with small challenges along the way, which is where then you're seeking instant help, and maybe more of some micro learning and nudges and things of that kind. And over a period of time, when you build expertise, that learning may peter off for a while, but then the next big fillip to that happens when you move into a new role, when you get a promotion, take on a new project, and then so it seems that the pace of learning also could be a bit of a cycle, right? I mean, what do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. So with every stage in life, as a part of your career as well, sometimes, when you're at the start of your career, you will need more process, and you need more, on the ground training. When you start moving up the seniority ladder, that's when, a simple nudge, or even a, great piece of advice coming in from a mentor, that is good enough to, move that person to the next level. So again, this is where the role of the organization comes into play. This is where the role of the platform that they implement comes into play, to be able to really understand where the person is, and take that person to that next level. So if there is a platform which can do that piece for an organization, then an organization will always be future proof with regards to their upskilling.
Yeah, great. And that brings me to another very important topic, in this area, which you had briefly touched upon earlier, which is, capability and skills, right? That's a very important thing, and something which a lot of people don't fully get. So I thought it might be good if we spend some time on that. So really the question is that, how is technology driving this upskilling, reskilling of employees based on defined capabilities, appropriate skills, and then measuring the impact of learning. So, for example, if we take a role of a sales manager, right? And one of the capabilities a sales manager requires is that of negotiation, right? And what are some of the skills that you require for negotiation? It could be things like listening, communication, doing competitive research, analyzing some industry data, able to do an ROI calculation, able to understand what does it take to have an effective pricing strategy, and so on and so forth. So there could be several roles that require specific capabilities, and each capability could have a set of specific skills, and there could be an overlap of skills across these capabilities. So Ibrahim, the challenge really is that how do we develop this capability skills framework or competency framework for every organization? So it'll be great if you can just take us through some of the steps for building these competencies, and then how do you link that to personalized learning, and then going forward to measuring the actual impact of learning?
Great question, Thomas. So that's exactly, fortunately, what we've been attempting to, solve for the entire HR industry, as a whole. So in our experience, we've seen that, a lot of organizations have a framework in place. At least the matured ones, do have, some format of an competency framework in place. But really the implementation of the competency framework and the measurement and stuff like that is where they face severe challenges. So the way we've been able to solve this for a number of our customers in the last 3 years has been that we've been able to absolutely ingest the competency framework in whatever format that an organization would have had it ready. Our platform kind of allows you to be able to ingest the competency framework, and then it starts engaging the learner and the content which is meta tagged and brought in from multiple sources and stuff like that. But the innate ability to be able to align the competency framework of the organization to each and every learner to be able to understand where they are and what skills they have at that point in time, understand that gap, and then be able to use the user engagement engine, the machine learning algorithms, to be able to kind of help them traverse that gap, using all different formats of whether that's the right set of content consumption, whether that's the right reach out that a person needs to be made through on demand coaching, giving the bringing in an assessment for an individual. All of these pieces come in. I'll also like to add here that we've been able to help a number of organizations with some of the, and at least for a couple of industries now already, we've been able to bring in ready-made competency frameworks for industries with a content mapping in place, so that they are able to solve that jumpstart problem and get going from day one. The time taken to implement the platform to go digital in an environment with the ecosystem has been reduced significantly for organizations. Think of it like being able to implement a virtual assessment center, because people are continuously now learning, people get engaged, and then you are able to put that virtual assessment center in order for an organization and start measuring the absolute on the ground skills and the skills through the platform itself. So once you're able to, and the way we go about doing this is we look at multiple parameters of engagement through the platform. So and this again is depending on the seniority of the individual. So you touched upon that point briefly a few minutes ago of understanding where the person is and where the journey of that person is within the organization. So we look at multiple parameters across the seniority level of the organization and create the world's first competency measurement index to be able to do an absolute skills measurement. And this is a tried tested algorithm which has kind of patent pending. happy to talk about it in detail at another point. But what
Yeah.
the measurement actually does is it gives you an absolute score to the individual where they are at that point in time, and allows them to go through the journey of where the organization wants that individual to be using the user engagement overall. And all of this happens in a seamless environment where it is as per the preferences of the user.
Yeah, no, so I just wanted to delve a little deeper into this area of skills assessment. And how do you assess skills? And you did allude to, some of that. But I think, clearly employees will have certain strengths across certain skills, weaknesses across certain skills, and there are different ways of assessing that. So and obviously you mentioned that the learning journey gets tailored based on that, but it's a very pointed question around that assessment piece. Is it technology that is being used? Is it an assessment tool that's being used, or is it some peer assessment? I mean, what are the various components, 1, 2, 3, that typically will work in a couple of scenarios?
So we look at multiple parameters, right from the behavioral traits to using assessment tools which are kind of inbuilt within the platform, to even understanding how the learner is traversing across the platform. We are actually looking to bring in tools like 360-degree feedback and peer assessment as well, to be able to influence the and give a more accurate sense to the individual in a very, very transparent manner, plus the manager, the coach, and the stakeholder themselves, with regards to where am I, with regards to my learning path, with regards to my learning journey for my specific role in the organization, and where could I go as a part of my own career to be able to grow within this organization. So it's helping the platform actually helps make inferences and give a real world view to the individual of where am I with regards to where my organization wants me to be.
Absolutely. I think, yes, there is a context there. And if the technology is able to use the context and use intelligence to predict, I think that is going to be a sure shot winner. So I now want to move on to a very contentious issue, which is the really the subject of LMS, which is a learning management systems, versus LXP, which is the learning experience providers or platforms. And just to add some context here, I just want to briefly talk about some trends in digital learning. And I'm sure we're all familiar with this, but just to quickly summarize. So employees are typically now looking for consumer-like learning experiences, because out after their day job, they're used to consumer apps, and they would like learning and other business apps to also give them a similar experience. That's number one. Secondly, employees are also looking at flexible learning paths, because as you mentioned, the learning styles are different, and there are various opportunities for people to collaborate and learn as well. Thirdly, they're also looking to improve their soft skills, because I think it's people want to become good managers, good leaders. They want to be able to work effectively in teams and so on. And finally, learning engagement. Engagement is really going to be the key to ensure that the learning journey is effective and learning consumption is actually happening. So given all these as a context, and perhaps some other trends that you may be familiar with, Ibrahim, let me ask you a straight question. Where is the war between LXP and LMS headed, if at all there is one?
Well, see, gone are the days, obviously, of the LMS. A lot of people may argue and say that, the LMS is dead. And to some extent, rightly so, because the LMS was more built for the HR and L&D to be able to manage, organizational learning. What the LXP has done, is put the learner in the front seat. So everything that basically an organization is looking at from a very learner perspective, and that's where the advent of the LXP came into place. And I think fortunately for the overall industry, I think that most of the platform players today have kind of understood this, and they are all migrating towards that journey. Some have done it faster, some have done it slower. Somebody like us has kind of attempted to move beyond the LXP also, and looked at the overall employee engagement itself. We've actually been able to create the entire ecosystem around talent development. So the answer to your question is that there is a need to be able to bring an environment to the learner for self capability development, rather than looking at controlling the learner anymore. The need is to be able to create a hyper personalized learning environment for the individual to upskill themselves, allow the individual to be able to identify their own gaps, bring a transparency in the measurement of skills, completely remove all the bias from the manager or the stakeholder, put the employee in the front seat, and as a stakeholder still control what people view, what they basically get assigned, track the learning progress, but with an edge, by allowing the learners to be absolutely in control. So I think if organizations are be able to do that, and platform players are able to provide that kind of an experience, then these are all interchangeable words in this era, to be honest, Thomas.
No, I totally agree, because what we're hearing is that all the traditional LMS players are now adding an LXP piece, building an LXP piece, and the people who started as pure LXPs are either acquiring LMSs or they're adding an LMS piece. But having said that, I must, in a lighter vein, state what I read somewhere the other day, which was that LMS is more like a mainframe in the basement, while LXP is driving the employee experience.
Absolutely.
And clearly, the new learning stack starts with the LXP and then extends into the LMS, virtual learning, career pathing, and so on and so forth. Now, before we move forward, I have a question for our viewers, and I just would request all our viewers to answer this question in the chat window or in the comment on LinkedIn. So the question is, what is the one innovation you have implemented in your organization in this digital learning journey? So what is the one innovation you have implemented in your organizations in this digital learning journey? It'll be wonderful to get your thoughts on this, and it'll give us some ideas as we plan some follow-up discussions as well. So Ibrahim, moving on, the other very important aspect, one is learning. Then the other piece is really building a career path, right? So really, how aligned is the implementation of career pathing in a learning platform? And let me, look at a specific example here. Let's assume we have a company with 3 product lines selling into the SMB and the enterprise space. And let's take a sales executive who's selling a specific product line into the SMBs, right? Now, how would he or she determine their career path? Now, there are various obvious options available here. The sales executive who's doing one product may say that I would like to move to another product, or would like to move to as a sales executive in enterprise segment, or become an account executive in an enterprise segment, or look at a promotion and becoming a sales manager, managing a team, and so on and so forth, or even look at other functions like customer success and marketing. So Ibrahim, how do we stitch all this, in a learning experience platform? Because obviously there is a certain aspiration that the person has, and then there's a lot of content available for the person to upskill and so on and so forth. But it's very interesting how career pathing gets integrated into a learning platform.
See, there are 2 parts to this. One is, implementation of the, skills ontology and the competency framework at the organizational level across all your behavioral, functional, and technical skills, assuming that somebody like us has been able to help the organization implement that in the first place. That becomes your kind of ground layer. So that's from a very organizational perspective. The second piece is to be able to bring in the right set of content which is meta tagged and that can be intelligently discovered by the individual in their learn flow of work or as per their areas of need. The third piece is, from a very organizational perspective, is the concept of building tacit knowledge. So if, I as an individual, let's take I am that sales guy, okay, and I want to move from one department into another. Now, where does my, lateral move or where does my chance of being discovered by my organization improve? If I have already acquired those skills, if I have future proofed myself, and if there is a way that my organization can see that I'm ready for that next role, that's where the whole concept of career pathing actually makes sense. The environment where you are able to give an individual the option to be able to choose what is the role that I would like to be next, and then can the platform intelligently push that kind of content to me as an individual so that I can upskill myself whilst I'm doing my current role. Because obviously whilst no organization will want a person just to build a career and not do their current role. I mean, who's going to do that current role, right? So the environment and where I can slowly but surely upgrade myself. So let's say take that example of that mainframe piece. Today new age digital skills like AI and Python and deep learning are the need of the hour. But I'm a mainframe engineer. Okay, I have done mainframe for the last 15 years. Uh, can I build those skills within me so that when that next role comes up within the organization, when there is a demand for that particular skill, can the organizational stakeholders, can the HR actually discover that yes, Ibrahim is ready for that particular role, and then I am able to recommend this person for an internal interview with the right business team. That's where the role of career pathing comes into play, and that is where the role of the employee engagement, the LXP, the learning platform, the ecosystem is critical, because they are the ones who are going to be helping the individual discover what to learn. And more importantly, if the platform is owned by the organization, then they will have a first-hand view that this person is ready. And if I don't make this person move within the organization, if I don't identify the potential, this person may move out otherwise, and there could be a loss of talent within the organization. So the career pathing piece is very critical to an organization as they move forward.
No, I think so. And I think that is truly an innovation in learning technology, where we are able to go beyond learning into pathing careers as well. So finally, I must ask this question. Is that we're seeing so much of action in the space. There are so many players coming in. There are so many companies who are changing their, or rather enhancing their capabilities. So it's going to be highly competitive, right? So a straight question to you, Ibrahim: how is ICOG innovating learning technology in this very, very competitive market? I mean, perhaps you can give me 3 critical points about how you are innovating.
I'll have to give you 5. Okay, so it's about figuring out the learning ecosystem itself, Thomas.
Yeah,
That's where the answer actually lies. So of course, the first and most foremost important piece is the hyper personalization using deep learning. That is the first one, and I can go into the way learning engagement and how the user engagement kind of works and stuff like that. But that's maybe perhaps for another question. But the first and foremost piece is hyper personalization using the AI. Second is the most important piece is how do you figure out ROI on learning? Because when the CHRO walks into the boardroom, the CFO is going to ask you a question: does the investment in learning actually increase my performance and eventual EBITDA for the organization? So the way we have been able to kind of solve this problem is that we've been able to put a competency measurement index, which can
Right.
be correlated real time to on the ground performance. And that's what has become a winner for, all the organizations that are, choosing to work with ICOG. The third piece is, the ability to be able to bring in content from multiple sources. Please remember, today people are learning from everywhere. So the platform that we've built has been able to bring in content from multiple sources, your MOOCs, World Wide Web, allow the individual to be able to become a contributor of content, bring in third-party libraries, the world's most popular libraries. We're already associated with them. We brought that in, meta tagged that content into the platform, mapped it to competency frameworks and stuff like that. So the ability to be able to bring that, learning in the flow of work, the right content for the right learner at that right point, whether it's behavioral, functional, or technical. The fourth and the most, probably exciting piece that we are, looking to, kind of, dazzle all our customers is, our technology called as AutoVox. This technology allows, a video to be able to be automatically subtitled, create an in-video search. So imagine you are now going to be able to search through a video, using key phrases, keywords, and directly jump inside that video. So I don't have to go through, 3-hour training. If I am, looking to bring, search for a specific, answer, I will get all those points where that particular, piece was talked about. And that is, true learning innovation in our, piece, because that's where, learning in the flow of work actually truly gets implemented. And then, of course, the talent discovery and career pathing piece, which we brought inside the ICOG platform for organizations and for individuals to be able to traverse their individualized learning paths, and for organizations to discover the potential in the organization. So this for us has been across the ecosystem. We've been able to kind of bring the deep learning and AI to be able to implement all of these and solve those critical challenges for the entire L&D tech space.
Yeah, I think that, thanks so much, Ibrahim. I think that was very, very impressive. And I think we've come to the end of our session. So thank you very much, Ibrahim, for that lively discussion on disrupting learning technology. And let me remind our viewers again that it would be really nice if you can answer the question that I had posed. And let me repeat that question. What is that one innovation that you have implemented in your organization in your digital learning journey? It'll be great for us to hear from you. And of course, we're going to be having follow-up conversations on this topic and getting more global, speakers up here. Until then, my friends, please stay tuned to my YouTube channel, which is up here on the screen, Musings with Thomas Abraham. And also watch out for our live discussions every Monday on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter on trending topics around HR tech, software as a service, and sales. It's goodbye from now, and stay safe and stay well. Thank you so much, Ibrahim.
Thanks, Thomas.
Fantastic. Wonderful chatting with
Pleasure
you.
having you.